All right, I'm going to go over a supposed plot leak for The Flash, now scheduled to come out next year, sometime in June 2023, because of all the problems and whatnot. There's been several leaks while this movie has struggled to come into existence. It does exist now, but I'm sure it's probably going to get changed between now and June and all that stuff. But this recent plot leak sounds credible to me, and it does include some things that we've heard before, and whether or not they changed it or dropped it or did something else, and that's why it's different, perhaps. But I'm thinking this is pretty legit. So, hey, Doug, why go through this now? You're spoiling everything. And yes, there will be spoilers here because, again, I'm thinking this is probably pretty close. It matches up to some of the scenes, behind-the-scenes shots you've seen and stuff like that. And so, I guess I've done this before where I've gone through something, hey, maybe this, maybe that. But in this one in particular, I don't know. Surely they're going to release the film at some point, but with Ezra Miller's meltdown, and hopefully he gets help and takes a break, and stays out of trouble, because God knows what else is he going to do, And it's a long time. For whatever reason, they had to do this, and I'm assuming there's going to be some reshoots and whatnot. I don't think they'll replace him entirely. That's a lot of trouble. But yeah, he's definitely could just backfire on them, in a spectacular fashion, much to their woes. But anyway, I'll go through this rundown. Apparently this was on a Facebook group, and then some guy on Reddit posted it. So, I went through it and decided, I think this is probably legit. Just, my opinion. It could be complete crap, but and they're just making it fit to what they do know, what we all know from behind-the-scenes shots and stuff like that. So, here we go. So, if you don't want any spoilers, time for you to back out. So, anyway, here it is. The movie begins with Barry Allen in line at a restaurant to get a fancy sandwich when Batfleck, that's the Ben Affleck version of Batman, calls him for help dealing with some terrorists. Barry speeds off just as the terrorists detonate a bomb under a hospital, causing it to topple. Flash saves everyone, including babies, falling off the maternity ward. Now you can imagine how cool this scene would look. I'm thinking the best Flash scenes was actually in the X-Men movies with Quicksilver, how they did it, So I'm sure there'd be lightning and stuff popping around him as he's doing this and stuff. I don't know if he'd be in the new costume at this point or the old one. Maybe whatever. But that's the deal. That would be a cool opening scene of him doing all that, and so and then of course meeting up with Batman. So meanwhile, Batfleck chases after the terrorists in the Batcycle, which we've seen. That's the the behind the scenes shot of the it was a stuntman, but nevertheless it was Ben Affleck's Batman riding around on the Batcycle, but nearly loses them until Wonder Woman shows up and helps him, and that coincides with rumors that I think were confirmed that Gal Gadot shot some scenes for The Flash. So there you go. She makes her cameo. She saves or she captures the terrorists. There's another gag scene where both Barry and Batfleck touch Wonder Woman's lasso and reveal embarrassing secrets. Like it turns out, Alfred washed Batman's underwear with a red shirt, and now his underwear's pink. Stuff like that. Barry returns to the... that's just me adding that. Barry returns to the restaurant just as his fancy sandwich gets done. So that's how fast he does all this. So the bulk of it would be Barry saving those people in the hospital, and then it wraps up with the cameos of Batman and Wonder Woman. And by the time, so now he has plenty of time to get back to the restaurant, and so he just ordered the sandwich, and so now he's done. There you go. So Barry is dating Iris West, who knows he is the Flash and remembers when he saved her from a car crash, which you saw in the Snyder Cut. She has a really small role. Boy, I tell you, this actress just, She was completely cut out of Justice League, but she's back in the Snyder Cut. But they're going with Snyder Cut. That's canon, not the Justice League version. So they're acknowledging that. So that's, there's the deal. Barry works at Central City Police Crime Lab alongside Patty Spivot and Albert Desmond, who are dicks to him. Barry and Batfleck later meet at the Batcave and discuss the murder of Barry's mother, which Batfleck is helping Barry reinvestigate. Barry's mother was stabbed to death by an intruder while his father was in the grocery store picking up a can of tomatoes, and he was blamed and incarcerated for her murder. Barry retrieved security footage that proves his father was at the store, and Batfleck enhanced it, but his face is still obscured. They talk about Barry traveling back in time to save the Justice League when they fought Steppenwolf, another nod to the Snyder Cut. Barry considers trying to travel back in time to save his mother, but Batfleck advises against it, claiming his mother's death made Barry into the hero he is, and maybe it was always meant to happen. And Batman's the only one who can make that argument, because he says, hey, while you're back in time, you could save my parents. But if that happens, same situation. So Barry listens at first, but when the security footage is deemed inadmissible in court, he snaps and decides to travel back to the day of his mother's murder. Barry plans to put the can of tomatoes in his mother's shopping cart so his father won't have to return to the store to pick it up later. In the Speed Force, Barry is attacked by another Flash in a battle-damaged black suit, but appears to be able to escape back to the present. Barry goes to his parents' house and finds out they're alive and well, but then runs into another Barry and realizes he's actually in a parallel universe. So, Barry, number one, finds out the Justice League doesn't exist in this universe, aside from Batman. He even calls Tom Curry and asks to speak to Arthur, but Arthur is Tom's dog in this universe, so there's no Aquaman. So he just named his dog Arthur. Okay. Barry, too, has powers, but is a slacker with no heroic aspirations who lives with slovenly counterparts of Patty and Albert. Okay, so they're his roommates in this one. Suddenly, General Zod's You Are Not Alone transmission is broadcast worldwide. So there we go. We're lining it up with Man of Steel, but of course it's in this alternate universe. Barry 1 deduces Superman is out there somewhere, and they need to find him to stop Zod before he can return home. They drive to Gotham to ask Batman for help, but instead of Batfleck, they find loony old man Bat Keaton, who is still active well into his 70s. So Bat Keaton agrees to help, and they reproduce Barry 1's accident to reconnect him to the Speed Force so he gets his powers back. Okay, so he lost his powers when he arrives in this universe. This is following somewhat the Flashpoint storyline. It's just you have different events here. And so instead of Thomas Wayne, you get Bat Keaton. And but the same thing is that they had to do this dangerous experiment to get Barry's powers back. And I don't know if they'll do it exactly where he got fried at first. But they're going to do that in this version of it. So it's interesting. So far, it sounds pretty cool. And it makes sense that, he's going to help this world deal with Zod, when really just, look, sorry, buddy, but I got to get back home. But he can't. He doesn't have any powers. But they reignite his powers, and he's going to help them deal with Zod. So Bat Keaton and the two Barrys find out in this universe the government got to the Kryptonian spaceship first and captured its occupant. It's very similar to Flashpoint. The comic book version. They track the Kryptonian to a secret military base and break in expecting to find Superman, but instead encounter his cousin, Kara. What? So, all very similar to the Flashpoint comic book plot of this sort of thing, except, there was no Zod invasion. They had the war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman instead. But nevertheless, this is what they're doing, and they go in there, but instead it's Supergirl instead of Superman. So it turns out in this reality, Zod killed Kal-El as a child back in Krypton. So Jor-El and his brother Zor-El put the Codex in Kara and sent her to Earth instead. Kara escapes before the government agents come for her and hides out with Batman and the Barrys. Kara and Barry 2 form a special bond. Well, Barry 1 rallies the others to fight the Kryptonians. Bat Keaton gets an armored suit. Kara uses the scout ship to make herself a suit. Oh, so that's how she gets her suit. I was wondering if, like, she wasn't going to have the suit until, like, later or something. But anyway, she makes a suit, and Barry, too, improvises a suit from Bat Keaton's old suits, which, there, that lines up. You've seen, like, stills from the movie, and he's wearing an old Batman suit with the lightning bolt painted over it, you know. So anyway, the four confront Zod and his men in a big battle. But despite their efforts, Zod blows up Bat Keaton, and snaps Kara's neck. So I've heard this one before, too. So instead of Superman snapping Zod's neck, he's going to snap Kara. So she's dead, and there you go. So the Flashes travel back in time and prevent Bat Keaton's and Kara's death, but they did anyway in different ways as the battle so I guess they have to do it over and over. I don't know. As the battle, the Flashes keep trying to change the outcome of the battle until Barry 1 realizes that it's a fixed point. So okay, they do it several times, but no matter how many things they change, it still ends up, Batman and Supergirl die. So he realizes it's a fixed point, something that was always meant to happen to make Barry 2 a true hero. Barry 2 refuses to accept this and goes into the Speed Force to try again. So I'm thinking, it doesn't say it here, but since they said that Barry 2 and Supergirl have this connection, I think he has a crush on her, and she dies, he's devastated and wants to save her, and that's why he's not willing to give up as much as Barry 1 is. So Barry 1 follows him, but he's attacked again by Black Flash, who turns out to be an older version of Barry 2. Black Flash spent 10 years trying to change the timeline without success before going crazy and deciding the only way to save his world is to kill Barry 1. I mean, yeah, well, I was going to make a joke, but I shouldn't. Black Flash chases Barry 1 across the multiverse, but just as he's about to kill him, Barry 2 takes the hit and sacrifices himself, causing a paradox that erases Black Flash, because if his past self ceases to exist or dies, then he can't, The multiverse is damaged by their battle, so Flash races across realities, mending all the dimensional rifts before returning to his own universe. Now, how he does that, your guess is as good as mine. Barry has realized that his mother's death was meant to happen and that he cannot save her, because if he keeps trying, he's going to go nuts like Black Flash did. But anyway, he still goes to the grocery shop and shares a moment with her before she leaves without the can of tomatoes. So you can understand, you can have that scene where he's just so tempted to do it, but he can't. And, it's all sad. But that's part of maturity, Barry decides he can't change the past, but he can change the present and rearranges the shelf so that, well, you're still changing time, but okay, the can of tomatoes is in a position where the security camera perfectly captures his father's face. Back in present day, the footage is accepted as proof of his father's innocence, and he is released. As they celebrate, Bruce Wayne drops by, and Barry is surprised when it's Bat Keaton instead of Batfleck. A bus drives by with a picture of Wonder Woman, and and that's also some behind-the-scenes shots of a bus with Wonder Woman on it. And so there you go. Barry realizes the universes have merged into one. Supergirl flies down from the sky. They still remember the original timeline. Bat Keaton says, the three of them all remember it, I guess. I would have thought only the Flash would remember, because he's the one who went through the Speed Force and everything. But anyway, Bat Keaton says they need to put together a team to protect this universe and asks Barry if he's in, echoing a speech Barry gave him when he convinced him to fight Zod. Well, how'd that turn out? Barry smiles, cut to black. So time changed here. So it's multiverse and everything. I guess you can squirt a little way to that, but at the same time, they're alive again. So I don't know that it explains that completely, or if it's just his trying to fix everything caused the universe to merge. Well, whatever. So Barry and Aquaman are hanging out at a bar. So I guess this will be the first little, stinger after the movie's pretty much over. So he's hanging out at the bar with a drunken Aquaman, freaking out over all the differences between the old and new DCEU. Chief among them that Supergirl used to be Superman. Yeah, and I thought at first that's what they were going to do, where this was a gender swap, and rather than it's just no, it's Supergirl Kara Zor-El. And who knows? Maybe they weren't. They decided, that might have been one of the reshoots there. But anyway, so I don't know how Aquaman would remember the old universe, but he does apparently. So unless, of course, Barry explained it to him, and that wakens him up to how it used to be. Who knows? But so in final scene, another, I'm assuming in the credits type stinger deal, Barry is at his apartment when suddenly the lights go out, the TV and computer screen flicker on, and Batfleck's voice is heard saying, "Find us, Barry. You have to find us." Heard that one many times before from people who got to see the screen test. So this all sounds very credible. So that's how it ends. It doesn't mention another one where the screen test people claimed there was another scene where Supergirl shows up and tells Barry, "I want to show you something." And then you see Barry's reaction to whatever it is. You don't get to see what it is, but his reaction is rather stunned to see what it is. Everyone just assumed it's Henry Cavill as Superman. Maybe that's one of the reshoots they're doing now that they've delayed it and stuff, but who knows? The delay seems to be a lot of problems with, Ezra's meltdowns and whatnot. And that's why they had to delay the other films to take out apparently corresponding scenes that were put in, because the Flashpoint movie was supposed to set this new universe, and so Aquaman 2 follows that, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, poor Batgirl's HBO Max movie is completely dependent on this. So who knows? I guess they'll have to maybe put it out next 2023 fall, or something like that, provided this movie makes it. So all in all, it sounds like a cool little romp and stuff. It does acknowledge Snyderverse, but it does, it's still there because you got Batfleck reaching out to him. So he's in this new universe that's been created, but his old universe still exists. And so Flash 2, he'll get back to it, I guess. And that's the hope. And I guess it seems to be a cliffhanger here. So to be continued till the next exciting episode of The Flash. But it's a movie series. So the Flash 2, it's not just going to be a Flash adventure where he fights, Reverse Flash or Mirror Master or someone like that. Instead, he's got to deal with DCEU stuff again. It's okay to have cameos and a little tacked on scene here and there, but when the whole movie is dominated by, and this one is what it is, it's a reboot movie. It's there to reboot it. And just based on the plot points, does a better job than Batman versus Superman did in setting the thing up. But because it has the advantage of stuff has already happened, So yeah, this isn't erasing Snyderverse per se. So it leaves it open should that be followed up. So it doesn't really shut everything down, and, but it doesn't mention that scene that there is a Superman in that, world. So I guess if that's the case, then perhaps talks with Cavill fell through, or, who knows. But that's the thing. That's the only worst thing about it. The rest of this sounds like it could be a cool little time travel multiverse type thing. It doesn't talk about any other cameos. There's been talks galore about all different versions. Perhaps when he's in the Speed Force, they'll just show some footage of other movies and he'll see that and that kind of thing. Apparently even Pattinson's Batman, in the footage just shows up while he's, battling it out with Black Flash, and that you can expect that sort of thing. So yeah, the only other thing is like, gee, I wonder, is Batfleck doing most of the stuff that was originally going to be Cyborg? Because Cyborg was supposed to be in it, but then, Ray Fisher had his little tantrum. So that was it. So, but it sounds pretty cohesive. It kind of works. It makes sense that Batman would help him with an investigation, and that they have similar situations where Batman understands how he feels about, the death of his mother, because, he went through the same thing with both his parents. So, it sounds like pretty good in and of itself. It's just all the, no Superman or Supergirl replaces him and all that stuff. And Michael Keaton, and that's cool and stuff, but I would have rather to just set up his own franchise of potential Batman Beyond and stuff like that, rather than bring it all in and it's Batgirl, and which robs her story, that kind of thing. Not too crazy about it in that respect. But it does appear to leave the door open for some sort of version of Snyderverse. However, they may or may not pursue that in whatever form or fashion. But we'll just have to see what Zaslav wants to do. That could change everything. So there it is, a little tour of the possible plot leak, which, just my guess, I think has a lot of credibility to it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Flash and the DCEU.